order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is up there in the corner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, this meeting has been posted in all the normal posting places. Make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second.
If I could just bring, we have Brian Mechanic from Riley Penner and Benton that's going to be joining us right approximately 7:15. I'm not quite sure where we're going to be in the meeting. Is everybody okay if we find a nice stopping point? Obviously not mid-sentence, but once one topic is done, if we move the audit findings to the front of the agenda when Brian arrives, just to kind of make well use of his profession. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. We are on to the student showcase.
Here we go. I have the pleasure of introducing Peyton Sen and Lola Tilke, Nola Tilke from the 4th grade math class from Mr. Fry, and they're going to talk about, so you think you know about multiplication. And if you would have a seat right here, Peyton and Nola, why don't you come right down here. Now, I'm very proud of these girls. Mr. Fry had them kind of do a presentation about a few weeks ago. And Mr. Fry sent me Peyton's, and I took a look at it, and I said, the board has to see this. It was really good. And then he told me about yours, and so now we have a double header. And so I'm very proud of girls in this class. We always don't have the ratio that I dream about for boys and girls in advanced math or accelerated math. And Mr. Russ knows that I've been on this for years. So I'm thrilled that they're here. Okay? So go back in school a few years with when you're first studying multiplication. Okay? Because when I looked at their slides, they're just really cool. So Peyton's first, Noah's next.
As you use product, factors, square numbers, prime numbers, factor pairs, and multiples.
What are you talking about? No, you don't have to talk about everything. Okay, go ahead, Mr.
I was just waiting for the...
Oh, okay.
Introduction. People think they know multiplication, like me when Mr. Fry said raise your hand if you know multiplication. I raised my hand.
Stop. Everybody raised their hand, because everybody knows multiplication, right? Right? That's what you're going with. Now, go ahead, Carol.
To know multiplication, you need to speak multiplication. Multiplication vocabulary. This slide will tell you all about multiplication. Let's get started. Product. What is a product? Well, I will tell you what product is. Product is the last number. For instance, if you multiply 7 and 7, you get 49. And 49 is the product. Let's try another one. 9 times 5 equals 45. 45 is the product. Now you know what a product is. Factors. What are factors? Factors are numbers that can make a number. Let's say I want to make the number
That's it? All right, Dave. So if you know about multiplication, right? Notice is a little different, but covers some of the same stuff, same material.
All multiplication by Welnetz. In this presentation, you need to show what you're learning about the following. Roll each as you use. Product, factors, square numbers, prime numbers, factor pairs, multiples. Product. Product is a number that stands for the answer in multiplication. Example, 5 times 3 equals 15. The example shows that 15 is the product for the multiplication product or the answer. Square numbers. Square numbers are what you get after multiplying the same number together. All the three numbers on a chart are square numbers. Example, 5 times 5 equals 25, 4 times 4 equals 16, 6 times 6 equals 32, 3 times 9 equals 89, 10 times 7 equals 100, and 2 times 2 equals 2. Multiples. Multiples are numbers like 5 equals 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Multiples can be any number that you want and can be as high as you want them to. Example, 6 equals 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. Those are multiples of 6, but there are more multiples than you can get. Prime numbers. Prime numbers are numbers you will only get by multiplying by 1. Example, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, and 23. 1 times 1 equals 1, or 1 times 29 equals 9. Factors. Factors are the numbers that can be multiplied to get a number. The example on the right shows that not all numbers can have the same factors. Example, what are the factors of 28? 1, 2, 4, 7, 14, 28. What are the factors of 19? 1 and 19. Factor pairs. Factor pairs are two numbers that can be multiplied together to get the same number. Example, the factor pairs of 24 are 4 times 6, 3 times 8, 12 times 2, 1 times 24.
And that's it. Any questions for our math girls, our math students? What did this help you do by putting this together?
It helped us show all that we knew, and it could spread out what we knew. It could spread out our imagination.
So you put some thought into the presentation to help you think more about factors and multiples and those kinds of things. So when it's more than just multiplication is 2 times 2, there's a lot to it. Great.
Since you know factors now, are you learning factor trees too? No, not yet.
One of the things that was interesting, I went to a conference about disciplinary literacy, not literacy, but disciplinary literacy. And it was interesting, I was talking to Mr. Fry and Mr. Budish at the same time, and what really struck me was this girl, just like you said, do you know multiplication? Well, if we would ask an average citizen, an average student, who'd say, yeah, you just multiply 2 numbers, right? But to a mathematician, which is what we want you all to think about when you're in math class, multiplying means something very, very different, which is what you demonstrated. So Mr. Fry came to me right away and said, Mr. Russ, you've got to see, I got an example about what you're talking about. And when he showed me your presentation, I said, that is disciplinary literacy. So when I ask you girls what multiplication is, you start to talk about products. You start to talk about factors and multiples and square numbers and perfect squares and all sorts of different things. That's one of the things we really try to do across our curriculums is when you are in a science class, we want you to start thinking like a scientist. One of the examples that I was using, and Mr. Spindler, you'll get a kick out of this one, and Jewel, I think you will too, for all of our sciencey people, if you would ask someone what the definition of a sugar is, like what is sugar? I'd say something sweet that goes in your cereal, right? But to a scientist, a sugar definition is paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. In social studies, or in history class, if you start to talk about, say, like a battleship, right? What is a battleship? A ship that's heavily armored and difficult to sink. Well, if you ask a historian about what a battleship is, they're going to write you a novel just to tell you what the definition is. So one of the things we really try to get our kids to think about is how can I put myself in as a scientist, as a mathematician, as a historian, or as a poet, or a literary writer? Because each one of those, when you start to think about those in different avenues, and as that specific person, you will start to come up with very different definitions, and that's what we call disciplinary literacy. So these girls, I know it's third grade, and I know it's multiplication, but the idea that you start to talk about products, and factors, and multiples, and squares, and square roots, which you'll get to in a little bit, that's really, really important as a mathematician. So thank you for thinking like a mathematician. Robertson's got a little something for you.
Yeah, something for you, paper. Thank you, and you can have some Mrs. cookies.
Mrs. Posey probably.
Yeah.
One for your brother too.
What kind of teacher do you think Mr. Russ was when he first started teaching? Before he was, yeah, he was a math teacher, didn't he? Did he sound like that?
I was. We talked all about those things. So, moms and dads and families, thank you for joining us this evening. We've got an exciting meeting if you'd like to hang around too as well.
Thanks for excited. That's not another phone in here.
Take all of them.
Yeah, take it up there.
Mom and Dad, they have to at least eat 3 tonight.
Yeah.
They can save the rest till tomorrow. It's fine.
Here's your opportunity.
Why two of these? We'll finish up the housekeeping. Should we finish up the housekeeping, or should we just?
Let's finish up the housekeeping and then right before the administration report. Right. Okay.
We have the minutes from November 6th and November 7th.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes of open session Monday, November 27th, 2017 at 7 p.m. and Wednesday, open/closed session, December 6th, 2017.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Okay, we've got financial report and bill listing.
Kris is gone tonight. Read the paper.
Do you want internet?
All right. I'll make a motion to approve voucher listing check number 55365 in the amount of $591.61. Direct deposit 900-45471 through 900-45580. The amount of $135,733.90. Wire transfer 201700188 through 201700200 in the amount of $134,113.37. Accounts payable check number 52645 through 52666, $90,030.30. Credit card transactions 1,020. $27,824.16. Credit card transaction 171800101, the amount of $7,126.96. ACH direct deposit 171800097 through 171800100, amount of $415.42. For total disbursements of $395,835.79.
Second.
Okay, with a motion and a second. Are there any questions, concerns? Okay, then all in favor say aye, approving them.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Delegations be heard, nobody signed up to speak to us. So we are ready for the audit.
Yep, all right, so I would like to welcome Brian Mechanic from Riley, Penner, and Benton in as they have completed the audit for the 2016-17 financial year. So obviously they've been working on this for quite some time. Kudos to Sherry and her team who have put together a ton of work cleaning things up and ultimately presenting Riley, Penner, and Benton's team about what they need to complete their audit and come to today with their findings. So, Brian, I guess we'll just kind of turn it over to you, and if you wanted to highlight some things
all right,
for us, and please go from there.
Sounds good. All right, first of all, the financial statements are presented fairly, so there means they're stated. They're not materially misstated. So in our opinion, it's an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, which is what you're looking for. We had full cooperation with the staff during the audit. Some of the operating results, your general fund, you had an increase in your fund balance for the year of $278,305 compared to an increase the year before of $57,000. So the general fund, you have your fund balance, you have non-spendable. This is due to prepaid expenses. That's at $40,704. Unassigned fund balance is at $2,891,000. Your fund balance is at about 31% of your expenditures for the year. So usually we tell districts they want to be between 20 and 30%. So you're at the high end, which is great because you don't have to do short-term borrowing with a fund balance at that level. So great job on that. General fund expenditures, you had total budget expenditures of $9,850,000. Actual expenditures were $9,498,000. So you spent 96.42% of your budget. Revenues, you budget $9,752,000. Actual revenue was $9,792,000. So you received 100.41% of your budget. So that's what caused the increase in your fund balance for the year. Debt activity, you had principal payments on your general obligation debt this year of $450,000. Interest was $37,744, and your balance on your debt as of June 30th is $465,000. So that will be paid off soon. There was, as I said, there was no short-term borrowing. Then we have OPEB. This year we adopted GASB 75, so we show the full net OPEB liability on the financial statements, which was at $48,903. And then we have our stipend. We adopted GASB 73 this year, which we're required to show the total supplemental pension liability on the books. So that was at $391,960. And with the change, you're required to have a full actuarial report now every 2 years, but you have to have a schedule updated every year. So it'll be pretty much up to date every year, unlike the old standards where we were required to have a OPEB study once every 3 years and do an annual required contribution, ARC. Now that's kind of gone away, so this actually shows a better reflection of what the true liability is. We did a state single audit. We tested some major programs. We had no findings to report. And then we also issue a management letter. We have significant deficiency for preparation of financial statements, which we have every year, because the financial statements, including footnotes and everything, are your responsibility. We prepare those, and you guys designate someone to review the financial statements once we've gone through those. That's so that we don't have an independence issue. Then we also had one for adjusting journal entries. There were adjusting journal entries that were made more than normal, well, not more than normal, not more than last year. But it's still Sherry worked hard this year to get everything cleaned up. The audit was smoother this year than last year, and with Sherry being here now a year and going through everything, putting procedures in place, and we did know that procedures are being put in place. So I have confidence that we won't have this comment next year. And then some other comments are the segregation of duties. This is common in school districts your size, that you don't have a person different people that can do everything. So in an ideal world, you would have people that have segregated duties, but you guys have some controls in place to help mitigate that risk. And then we have credit card usage. You need to strengthen the process to ensure receipts and supporting documentations are received. We also had documentation of receipts. This is money that's collected in classrooms and brought into the district office, and there's no supporting documentation. So this is something that you're going to work getting like the detail for it, and so can't do everything in 1 year. So this should be in place next year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually
If it's not already.
in
Yep.
place. Yeah, we mandated it right away.
Good. And then we have a comment about the actuarial report for post-employment benefits. As I just talked about, your next full one will be for the year ending, well, it'll be measured as of July 1st of 2017 and 2018, but the schedule will be just an update, and then it'll be a full one the year after that. So, any questions for me regarding the audit process, any of them? I'm sure you guys have read the whole audit report because it's really exciting.
We did give it to them.
You're good.
Katie said she had a hard time sleeping.
Did the adjusting journal entries actually affect overall fund balance, or was it just maybe the funds that it was in, or the accounts that it was in?
There were some that affected the fund balance.
Positively, negatively?
I think most of it was expenses, so that were needed to be adjusted, so it was negatively, but you still had a positive year. A lot of these are cleaning up entries that were done wrong the year before, like that were recorded or reversed incorrectly. So those were cleaned up. There was a July health insurance that was $21,000. This actually benefited your fund balance. It was not recorded as prepaid expense, so that was $21,000. So we moved that. There was one that was recorded in between Fund 10 and Fund 50 incorrectly, so that was adjusted. Health insurance, we accrued additional $12,000. Probably another big one was another health insurance for $53,000. So, but a lot of these will be done correct in the future. Sherry, we went through those items with her. She has an understanding of what needs to be done now. So, Sherry had a lot of cleanup to do because last year, when did you start?
In January.
In January, and I was at the board meeting, and bank statements weren't reconciled yet through that period, and you're doing those on a monthly basis now. So she had a lot of cleanup, going back and getting all those months done. So she did a great job. So.
I was hoping you said
You get
stuff.
Much better report than last year.
Right. A couple things as it relates to some of the findings, the receipts into, obviously Sherry's strengthening that up too, and we are taking a look at each employee, and ultimately, if there is an issue, we pull the card and deal with it that way too as well, so.
We've already done that this year once.
Right.
So we are definitely on top of everybody that lacks.
And then those receipts in, that's field trip money, instead of having the teacher just say, here you go, you gotta give us some purpose behind that too as well. The reason for the revenues up is our open enrollment expenditures were down compared to the revenues up as well too. So more kids came in than what was originally budgeted for, which is always a positive thing when we start talking about conservative budget. That fund balance, as you know, the board did authorize a lot of fund balance use here the last 3-4 months for one-time expenditures. We did have a large surplus at the end of last year, and those additional dollars, I think this year we're already tapping into right around $250, which is approximately what our surplus was a year ago. So right now we are operating a fund balance right around that 27-28%.
Right, that's what our budget is, to go back down
Yep.
to about 27-28%.
So, and then hopefully at the end of this year, obviously we'll hopefully have surplus. That's always the goal. And then ultimately take a look at how we want to utilize that fund balance in the future. So, but we're right in that, and then ultimately the board can decide. Our board policy is approximately close to 20% from that fund balance, but ultimately the auditors would recommend between 20 and 30, which we're hitting right there.
There's not many that are at 30, so.
I think that's good.
That is good, yeah.
So,
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Brian. Brian, thank you for your work and your employees and your firm.
No problem, thank you.
As well, thank you.
Okay, we're moving on. We've got visitors report. We've got donations.
Yeah, we've got quite a few donations. Tis the season of giving for Sherry's report here. Ultimately, we did have a family, Matt Dufek, whose company is a matching in their company of Abibai. Abibai donated $1,500 through the employee giving campaign for our school district. We are going to be sharing that $1,500 donation with our theater program, who is looking forward to and doing some fundraising, and we'll be bringing a proposal to our school board, I'm sure, to possibly help fund a new sound system that we are in desperately need of. So that's where we're going to be putting that $1,500 there. PTO has given us over 110,000, or 110, that much too, but $110 for reimbursements to cover Red Ribbon Week, and then obviously more grants to be mentioning in the next couple months, as they have given up to $7,000 in teacher approval grants as well. Condon Oil Company donated $500 to our STEM program, and Mary Iwanski, our science and technology specialist, is always seeking grant opportunities, and just like last year, PPG has graciously allowed us to have $5,000 in grants, $1,000 for the primary school and $4,000 for the intermediate school, to help fund STEM activities in different areas too. So just looking for the board to create a motion to approve the donations as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the donations as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor, then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Personnel action, requests.
Yes, we have an unpaid leave request similar to last month, where we had a first grade teacher. Now we have Mrs. Alicia Oberman, who is our geometry teacher. Again, she is, I think she's about an 11 or 12% contract, which in theory does not ultimately qualify for FMLA. So in order to have her on a maternity leave, we would have to go underneath the unpaid leave request. So what you see in front of you is a unpaid leave request by Alicia Oberman, and just looking for a motion to approve the unpaid leave request for Alicia Oberman as presented. We do have a sub secured for that. It is her sub from Arrowhead, who has agreed to come down here and teach our geometry class as well. So, and I'll be meeting with that gentleman on Friday.
I'll make a motion to approve the unpaid leave request for Alicia Overman as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, then say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Okay, under information.
Sure. Would like to bring up, and I think we'll rotate around. We've got Mr. John Deteshine and Mr. Jim Binney to kind of highlight the year in review on the facilities and the technology infrastructure side. Feel free to grab a cookie. They are very good.
There's no milk.
I'm really sorry. There might be a bit cooler out there. I'm probably going to know that. We've got 40 cents.
No.
Well, first of all, thank you very much again for your support in all the projects we do here in the district. I wanted to start out this year. First of all, a lot of this stuff that's happened isn't really possible without the great staff that I have, full-time staff and part-time staff. I mean, everybody works together as a team to make this happen, and you'll see some of that, the product and savings costs in it from people that are here. We started out the year with purchasing the new Bobcat, traded in or sold a 955. There's the guy from way up north bought that tractor. So it went out on Wisconsin surplus. Okay. Primary library.
Who's that guy on the left?
Looks like the Spindler family. Didn't even know I was taking a picture through the window, did you? Oh, Phil and Megan did a lot of volunteer work for that project for the tree, and I wanted to give them recognition for it because people don't see those things. So they were in there on after school or after hours. They were in there on the weekends and different things like that. So thank you very much. I just put kind of a rough picture together in the center for the room 120C, which is our kind of new meeting room. It's amazing how much we use that space. It's incredible. The amount of meetings that we have in there. You know, kids, it's great for the kids to walk by and see adults learning as well in meetings. We get comments, at least I have from kids about, you know, what are you guys doing in there? Well, okay. We're learning and we're educating and things like that. Go ahead. Intermediate school, this was a big undertaking. But it wouldn't have all gone as smooth as it did, except you get Jordan and Jared and Jim and Kirk and Darwin. I mean, every one of those guys had a specific task in what they did. And everybody knew that this step had to happen to make the next step possible so the contractor could keep going, because that was the biggest concern the contractor had. He goes, are you going to be able to keep up with us? And he says, we'll keep up. So, but it was really interesting. I mean, to tear the ceilings apart, to get a whole different look. We tore out some old HVAC stuff, some old computer stuff, cleaned up the hallways. The art room, we took out it was a center dividing wall years ago on the bottom right-hand corner. We removed that. It just was a great project, and it all went together exactly the way it was supposed to. Buildings and grounds, I want to put this in for revenue. Anytime we can, we scrap out for recycling. So I wanted you to see this year, our efforts was $4,135.10, and Wisconsin surplus between the tractor, the air compressor, and the dryer, and the basketball hoops that we had left over from 2015. We were able to accomplish this.
I want to add one more thing. We had desks that we took apart. Remember Mary Iwanski's? Was it her?
Oh, yes.
Can't remember if it was her
Her dad.
uncle. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were able to reuse those in different schools, like in different parts of the world. So it's really pretty cool how that all
I
worked out.
think part of some of the different areas of Mexico. And they showed us pictures of what the kids were learning on. And I mean, they came in and they took them all off themselves and shipped them down to Mexico. And then they had to fabricate them on to make them work for a new surface for these kids. So that was really exciting. Thanks, Jerry. The locker project, that was getting a little nerve-wracking because it was getting down to the wire, and our locker doors were promised, and they just didn't come. I tried to squeeze on a picture here of the cart that I have of all of the different parts that we need for lockers. I do have to keep that cart because we have those lockers yet in the side halls and in the locker rooms, both locker rooms. So the old style is the cup that you see in the center picture, and then it had the slide mechanism all the way up down the door. Now with the new style on the far right, it's just a latch. So, and now it's a continuous hinge from top to bottom instead of 3 hinges that were in our old existing doors. And we put on the lower lockers, we put all new plastic plates in the bottom. LED, I didn't take any pictures because you've all seen the new LEDs. But what I did want to do is put in there the energy savings, what is predicted. And as you can see, the primary library, the reason that's there's only 30 fixtures in there. But the reason that cost is quite a bit higher in savings is because those were 400 watt mercury vapor bulbs in there. So those were big energy usage. And the negative to them is if you turned them off, it took 10 to 15 minutes for those to come back on. Where now they just go in there and turn the LEDs on. Intermediate section, which is from the elevator, not the elevator, but the ramp all the way through this area, $91,239 over 10 years. The fixture installed, what I talked about is we got a price on having a contractor install all these, and we got a price of, it was $35,000. So Jeff Bartlett came in here, he goes, well, I'm going to give you a ballpark about $7,000 to hook up all the fixtures. Well, Jeff's price came in considerably less because the Buildings Grounds Department was ahead of him all the time. They were taking the fixtures down, they were putting the new fixtures up, securing them, so Jeff would come in, and all he had to do was hook the whips back up. So, could we possibly have done that in-house? Yes, but with everything else going on, we just didn't have the time to do it. So, I came up with the $31,026 that what it came down to. So, okay, go ahead. The new DX unit, that was interesting. The picture on the left is the old coil coming out. They ended up taking the whole half of the old unit apart to get this out. And instead of opening up a wall like they thought they were going to have to, they went about it this way. So we ended up actually getting a better job because we have easier access now into getting into the unit. So then on the outside, of course, you've got the new unit. I had our painter paint up the electrical panel because that was all rusted up. And we took down the wire top fence and installed a straight 8-foot. And then we took the wire top, what was on the existing wall, and we removed that as well. Which it worked out well because the same day the roofers were here working, and they made us a new top cap for the block wall. So otherwise we would have had all those holes. So it worked out actually kind of nice. On the building envelope, this was, I highlighted this one. As you can see on the picture on the right, on the left, this is before we started. We actually had mortar coming out. We had bricks that were starting to break. So they basically took a lot of that. This is just one side that they took apart and rebuilt, and the right side is the finished product. They did a really nice job of getting that taken care of for us. It was interesting to watch them seal the outside of the building. I was up on the roof and be out there with the sprayer and how he knows exactly how much to put on by the amount of run down the building as he's spraying the stomp on. The next day we had a rainstorm. It was pretty interesting to go up there, and I put my rain jacket on and watch, and that water just sheared right down the side of the building. So it's a nice feeling knowing in our district that our exterior of our buildings are buttoned up between the last year's project and this year's project. So, good job. Fourth grade, what I wanted to show you here is kind of an example of on the bottom of the carpet, how we now have the carpet come wall-to-wall carpet, because we used to have the tile in the classroom. What I wanted to kind of highlight is, the accent wall versus our basic blue color that we used to have in our classrooms, and also the blinds. Those were the old pull-down blinds that were breaking, and now we have the new security shades in our classrooms. So I want to kind of go off of that. Locker door replacement. We did the 4 main locker room doors. We went from a 3-hinge door to a continuous rotund hinge and a stronger vent grate on the bottom. New equipment this year, besides the Bobcat, we purchased a new trailer from Bill Bar Farms. Huge difference right away is you don't hit your head in this trailer. That's number 1 factor. Number 2 factor is when we haul chairs and things from school to school. The old trailer, we were only to get 1 cart of chairs in there. This one we can haul 3 carts. So we're making it cuts down on so much stuff. The aluminum trailer, I went with all aluminum trailer because, you know, as we do things in the winter and recycle, we don't have to worry about the condition of the trailer. That trailer paid for itself this year with all of the stuff that we hauled to recycling. The new mower for the 2720 for cutting the outdoor ed area. Of course, the Gaga pits, we did concrete, the primary, intermediate school, and one of our parents, Jason Frederick, donated his time and material for his company. Underneath that surface is a 1-inch styrofoam pad, and it's got the grass on top. So now instead of the kids scraping their knees, which they were, Mike, you could probably tell what's that become out there.
I'm sorry.
The Gaga ball.
What's it become, the change from?
No, they died for balls. They really enjoy it, and it's we've been able to take the snow off it with a plastic bladed shovel so we can keep it clean. We've got a better ball in there that doesn't get beat up. It's like a mini soccer ball that really holds its shape and stuff. But the kids really love it. I mean, yeah, we don't have injuries. It's a report from the Gaga pit.
All the bloods. Yeah, and then intermediate school roof. I missed the picture for the area on the other side of the gymnasium that we did. So basically, the intermediate school, we have just 1 roof section left to do, which is our 1987 section, and it was inspected again this year, and he's like, if it's working, let's keep going with it. So that was this section. Stormwater discharge pipe, which still has the fence around it. We kept having issues. It started last winter. We were getting washouts in the ground, and we thought maybe there was an old tree root, a drain tile, something. Well, when they dug out there, we took almost 4 feet of topsoil. It just was forming these holes because of all the topsoil and all the water that gets sent out through the pipe. So that hole there, I actually put my leg down in it that day, and I kept going, and it got to here. So those holes were deep. So what they did is they dug down, they put a 3/4 traffic pond on the bottom, compacted it, and then filled it with 3-inch stone. We saved 2 quad axles of topsoil from that project, put it in the outdoor ed program, and in spring we'll bring that over and put it on top. And then we've got the erosion fabric and stuff for it, because we'll put a layer between the rock and like the silt fence type between the 2 different products. So, and the other one, the top picture, that was the day we got a sudden rainstorm, and I wanted just to show you how much water really gets discharged through that pipe, and that goes all the way out to the outdoor ed program. Okay. Primary roof. I started out by showing the gaps. We found a lot of gaps in the insulation. Some of them were up to 2 inches wide because insulation shrinks over time. And what was happening is you're looking right at the roof deck. So in these areas, there was no insulation between the rubber the stone and the deck itself. It was just an open cavity. So what they did is they ended up pushing all of the material together and then added new insulation up against the wall. And the center one is the new 2-inch insulation that they put down. Of course, Jordan works right ahead of them. Of course, Jordan's smiling. And Jordan worked right ahead of them, taking all of the gas lines off and any gas valves that he felt needed to be replaced. Jordan replaced them right away, so he was up there working with those guys and, of course, starting to put the stone down. And last but not least, the primary sound system. That made an amazing difference with the sound levels throughout that school. And now we can actually control our tones, our bells. It's a more clear sound throughout the classrooms. We're not getting teachers complaining, I can't hear it. And now we're able to isolate areas, so we could do a tone just for the hallways, we can do tones just for the classrooms, we can do outside announcements only, we can do inside announcements only, we can do primary and cafeteria announcements only, or just hallway only. So it gave us a lot more choices of what we could do. So again, thank you for your support. Appreciate all of what you do. Thank you.
Thanks, John. And we appreciate you, John. Joe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk some technology. All right, so one of the, and Ron's talked about it, and a couple of you know about this. One of the big things we're doing this year in our TILT committee, which is usually for things related to technology in the classroom, is developing the digital literacy standards. I'm not going to get into a whole lot. We've talked about it a few times. But the point of this group is to develop, the standards to which we kind of expect our students to be as far as using technology in the classroom, as well as our staff integrating that technology in the classroom. We've gotten a great start on it. It's been great that it has actually aligned with Wisconsin adopting their digital literacy standards at the same time that we're going through this. So we've kind of taken what they've put out there and we're starting to adapt it to what we feel our kids should be doing. And we're actually at a point now for our next PD day in January. We're going to be putting these people out with their grade level teams and actually start designing how is that going to look like in your classroom? What are those specific things you're going to do that match up with those standards? This group has been great. There's been a lot of very good conversation coming out of these groups from people that I didn't expect to be as vocal as they were. And it's been very surprising. I've been very happy with it. So. Student devices. This was a big one last year, as you guys all remember. We moved the purchase lease program to start in 5th grade instead of 6th grade. It's helped out a lot with us being able to budget, being able to get more devices into the primary level. What I've seen from the first year that this was done, which was actually my first year in the district, the first year we had 72% of families opt for their students to have a device. The second year it did drop a little bit, and I do remember that year we had a lot of kids that were not happy that a device was being purchased by the family, yet we still had some control over it. So there was a little bit of learning curve there as far as what we were able to do with the device and them understanding, there's a lot of options this gives us for you educationally by us being able to control it. Plus the warranty that they had, the parents ended up really liking that because it ended up saving them a lot of money. Yeah.
Question. So this is somewhat off topic,
Yeah.
but for the school managed devices,
Yep.
you cannot add any user to that? Like, does that question make sense to you?
Yep, so on the Chromebooks, they are, when you log into them, you're only allowed to add a Merton Google account to them. However, if you're in them, and say a kid is at home and wants to check personal email on it, if they're in the Chromebook, they can add an account and switch it that way. So they do have access to it. And again, you know, it's been a kind of a hot topic recently. These aren't filtered for content outside the district. It's our end is when they walk out the door. We have some control over certain things, but as far as that content filtering, that stops at the door.
And monitoring.
Yep.
And monitoring.
Yep. So as you see, the second year, we had that slight bit of drop, and that is our current 8th grade students. The third year, it started going up a little bit again. And this year, we had 72% of our 6th grade families opt into it, as well as 80% of our 5th grade. Why I put this on there is, as we're finding with our forward testing, we can only do the forward testing on devices I can control. So it's going to create an interesting schedule this year for us to get all the devices that we need to test our kids. Plus, having a uniform device for all of our students, as much as possible, makes it a lot easier on our staff as well. They know what our kids have. They know they've been trained on how to use them. So that makes it a lot easier as well. Right. So with us moving the start down to 5th grade, we were able to move some much faster warranty devices to 4th grade, which made them very happy. And 3rd grade also received better Chromebooks than they had during the 16-17 school year. We're able to maintain that 1-to-1 ratio in 3rd grade, as well as we have enough spares to keep them going, seeing as those Chromebooks have aged a lot. And they were also in the hands of intermediate students for 3 years on top of what they had. So they've taken a beating, but we're keeping them going. So with us being able to move things around, we were able to replace all the student technology in 4K through 7th grade with the new rugged style Chromebooks. So right now we are in a 2-to-1 ratio, so 2 students for every 1 device in 5K through 7th grade. And we also were able to put 6 Chromebooks for 4K as well. And 4K has started to work with the parents a lot on getting kids used to logging in their accounts and everything, so that transfers to what we're doing in school. Trying to do some of that front loading to eventually help out 5K. The picture I put on here was an absolute hilarious moment when we did MAPS testing with kindergartners on Chromebooks. It was interesting. We had, it was myself, Sarah Phillips, the long-term sub for Melanie in there, as well as Dawn Baumgartner. We were all in there, and it took every single one of us to get those kids to use that mouse and everything. But once we got them going, they were off and running, and it turned out really well. And I will say, 4K through 2nd grade teachers have taken to this very well. Mary's been a huge support to them in helping them grow, and I'm very happy to see a lot of these teachers taking advice from Mary, but also taking chances on their own too, and just going, okay, this didn't work, what can I do to do better? So it's been really nice to see. So adding more technology in students' hands, we continued with our replacement of access points. This last year, we decided to kind of give our replacement schedule kind of a kick in the butt. And all those red circles are all the access points that I replaced older ones with newer ones. These newer ones are able to handle a lot more people, up to the latest AC standard of wireless, so it's a lot more speed. And it's helped out a lot, especially at this building, knowing that we just added 120 devices in one hallway. So it's worked it's worked out very well. And again, we still have some to replace, but they were kind of put strategically where the newer ones are helping out the older ones, so we didn't have to get rid of the older ones. Yeah, it was very balanced. Right. So this year we really started getting Google Expeditions out there. Since the beginning of the school year, we've worked with more than 23 classes using Google Expeditions. Beginning year, we start off in 7th and 8th grade, actually on the anniversary of 9/11, showing the kids the 9/11 Museum in New York. Recently, we've done the Serengeti, the Great Plains, and 2nd grade, this was about 3 weeks ago, they had a little expedition on darkling beetles that they were super excited about. Beetles on a tree, that's all it was. And actually, we've started to move expeditions to kind of individualize certain research projects. I worked with Corinne Meisner, who had a student that was doing a project on the Hyperloop. Well, there was a VR app of the Hyperloop that taught you everything there was about them. So I put it on one of those tablets, put it in the kid's hand, and he sat and he learned all about it. He did a presentation on it. So we're using it more than just classroom instruction, a whole class. We can individualize it. We can set a kid off with it there. We can set another kid off here and do his own thing. So it's worked out great. And I do have to admit, this Thursday, we're going to be doing a fun one that's not really related to any tech, thing going on. I'm going to try working with a kindergarten class on an expedition that's called Santa's Journey. So it shows the North Pole, the stables, his house, his workshop, all that kind of stuff. Katie Hines and I were talking about doing some things, and she was very excited about it. So we're going to try it. They say 2nd grade and up, but we're going to do it in kindergarten and see what happens. So, all right. Last spring, we went through and replaced all the AV equipment in the intermediate gym. I know Jay is very thankful for this. He doesn't have to do bending down in front of people anymore. This actually was a picture taken today of a gym class that was in there. Matt Pomeroy uses that thing religiously. If he's in there, that screen's on, he's using it. Kids are looking up at it as they're doing their work. All the equipment on the left, our choir, band concerts, all now use it. With John's help and Jordan getting up on a lift, we repositioned some of our old speakers, so it gave Andy Boucher some better sound for the Christmas concert. It's been a great investment. They're definitely using it a lot. Really using it a lot. Okay. So additional things we did last year, and into this school year, we've continued with our replacement of projection units in 5th and 6th grade. We did the phone system upgrade, big project, boring one to talk about. We migrated just recently to new fiber for our internet. So I was presented with an offer, same as a bunch of area school districts that use the same provider. They created a new fiber network outside of our building. As long as I stayed with them, they said, if you move to this one, we'll give you new equipment on the inside where you connect to the our network. And it's going to be faster, it's going to be more reliable. Okay, so I did it. And so far it's been working very nicely. Technically the same speed as we had before, but it is moving a lot faster. It's moving a lot faster. Just recently, with the cell phone policy that went in, and a few of you remember us talking about the idea of trying to find a video editing software if the need came up for it. Started getting a lot of push from 6th grade, 7th and 8th, ELA, the need for some kind of video editing. So we looked at it, Mary and I sat down, talked about it a little bit, and with some of the grant money she got this year, I purchased WeVideo for all the intermediate staff and students for the rest of this year, kind of in a way on a trial basis to see how it goes. With this subscription, I can see how much it actually gets used. Who's all using it? Who can we help to start using it? Are all the kids using it? and kind of see where we are moving forward with it, if it is something that we need to keep investing on. It's not overly expensive per kid. I think it was, overall, a couple $1,000s for this whole building. So not really a huge expense if it's getting used, and that's what we need to make sure of. But so far, they've been using it a lot. So one thing I'm going to be rolling out when the kids come back from break is the ability to have Android apps on their Chromebooks. There was a little gap that was left when we kind of moved the tablets out a little bit, especially Craig Heinze loved his tablets, he loved his Android apps, and there was a little gap left there. When they come back from break, all kids from 5K through 8th grade are going to have the ability, based on the educational need, to have Android apps on their Chromebooks as well. So that will add quite a bit to what a Chromebook can do. It'll give it a lot more functionality. Okay. And then just, looking forward, that's just the way I think. So there's always a list. Internal fiber upgrade is something we've had on our kind of watch list for quite a while. And with just the amount of multimedia stuff we're doing, eventually this is something that we're going to need to look at doing. Replacement of 3rd grade Chromebooks, potentially after this year, their end of life. So it's similar to what we did last year with 4th grades. We retired theirs, moved 5th grades down. So we'll probably look at the same kind of situation this year with 3rd grade. Continuing with projection unit replacement, after this year, we are done with all classrooms in this building. So we'll be moving on to the primary and start moving theirs out. Continue with it. Access point replacement. We probably have another couple of years of replacements before we are more or less all brand new, which will be great. And then some simple little things for me, replacement of UPS devices, help with power surges, or when Jordan turns off a breaker on me, fun stuff like that. And again, like John said, thank you guys for your support. I'm one of those guys, I like going to the facility committees, talking stuff out. I like hearing the questions and being able to convince people that, what I'm trying to do is right. But I do, in the end, I really do appreciate all you guys and what you guys do for us. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, we're on the strategic planning update.
Sure. Obviously, we've got a lot of strategic planning members here in the room, so thank you very, very much for all of your efforts. We have completed a really first solid draft of our mission statement, and that mission statement then will lead us into our vision and our values. And then at the end of our next meeting, hopefully all 3 of those things line up, and then we can continue on into the 4 strategic areas that we are going to be taking a focus and taking a deeper look at. So the months of January, February, and March will be very, very busy from the strategic planning side. We've got some already future meetings already set, and lots of work ahead of us still. So we are still on pace for that first draft to be presented to the board, hopefully by the April board meeting. So hopefully everything is continuing to move forward, but great work continuing to be done there. From the last piece of information I just wanted to share is based on some, basically we are part of a co-op, a purchasing co-op, where we use JP Morgan credit card. That's where we get some rebates back, very similar to what your personal credit card does. Well, the co-op has taken a look at and found a better vendor in U.S. Bank.
It was time for them to go out for renewal. So in that process, they contacted U.S. Bank to see what their rebates were, and they asked JP Morgan Chase to meet them. And JP Morgan Chase said that they couldn't, and so they dissolved the contract. So the whole consortium is going to move to U.S. Bank, and that's what their recommendation due diligence, I did reach out. There's a WASBO credit card program, and I checked out their rebates, but they weren't as good as what US Bank could offer. So my recommendation is we're just going to move with the entire co-op and go in that direction. And it's actually dissolving as of February 28th, so their new cards will be out March 1st.
So the business office will be leading the charge to gathering all the old credit cards, swapping things out, getting new accounts on them, and things like that.
Yep.
So more of an informational piece to the board for that too as well. So that's all we've got.
Committee reports, finance committee?
Yes, Finance Committee. We met last week, Thursday, and we had quite a few items on our agenda. The first one was land bids for the 2018 and 19 growing season. I sent out invitations to bid to 6 other local farmers and asked them if they would like to bid on the 32.7 acres that we currently own for the school district. And they were due back December 8th, and we only received 1 bid, and that was from Triple K Farms Partnership. And their offer was $161 per acre. So our recommendation is to go with that. But Randy did bring up a point that maybe in the future we might want to think about selling that land, if that's something that might be a future discussion. Is a possibility. But for now, this will be for the 2 growing seasons, 2018 and 19. Next thing we talked about was the PTO partnership with the playground equipment.
Sure. Yeah. Ultimately, what we are doing in the past several years, and last we just saw the primary school library, which was our last partnership. And this year we are looking forward to a primary school playground project. So again, strong partnership. We continue to work with the PTO and their fundraising events, and we will continue to keep the facility and the finance team up to speed on how those things are progressing too. So today, John led a meeting with 4 different vendors, playground vendors, for the structures itself. So they will be completing their bids and their RFP. Their proposals are due the first week in January, I do believe, approximately. And then Mike has been leading a team at his building in conjunction with staff, parents, and as well as some administration to determine what it is we want that structure to look like too. So we continue to also entertain what kind of surface we want on there. There are basically 3 avenues that we can go with. One is the traditional wood chips, which we currently have, but ultimately, like we've done in the past with that ADA accessible swing, we would like to make this play structure completely accessible. So if we do wood chips, then we'd be looking at some sort of a pathway to each of the different areas of the playground set. We could just do a complete rubber surface as well as we could also do, like you saw, the turf, and working with a parent partner as well. So we'll continue to keep everybody in the loop as it relates to the financing of that, and ultimately what we'll have to decide is you know, if we want to move forward with a surface, what kind of surface, and is it just for the new area, or is it for the entire existing primary school playground on the north end, and would be the east end of the playground as well. So we'll continue to keep everybody in the loop, but that is one of the big partnership projects this upcoming year, and hopefully if all goes well, they will be approving a playground structure, if that's something the board is interested in, probably at the end of February, beginning of March, so we can get on their schedule and then make some determinations about the surface. So if all goes well, everything will be completed by the start of the upcoming school year. So.
The next item we talked about was our Fund 60 student activities policy. The policy that we currently have doesn't have a lot to it. So when our auditors were in, they pointed out various items that they recommended we need to start including. And therefore, I did a little research on some other school districts and what they have. So what I put together is a pretty comprehensive policy, but it's very straightforward, and it truly deals with all of the functions in the business office, how student activity funds will be formed, how they'll be dissolved, the types of financial accounting procedures and handling their funds, because it's not a school district's fund. And so basically, we brought this to the finance committee since it has to do with all fund management. management instead of going through the policy committee. And our intention is that we'll have the first reading at the school board meeting in January for more discussion at that time. But if you could kind of just look through it a little bit in the meantime and, let me know if you have any suggestions to that one. So first start on that. And then next we talked about the food service account balance guidelines. And this is a requirement now that we're on the National School Lunch Program. We have to have some guidelines in place for our families and our students. So I really copied a lot off of the Heartland Lakeside guidelines because we're with the food partnership with them. And basically put together, it's quite specific. I did run it through the principals, through the secretaries, and through the finance committee just to get some feedback on it. So there were a lot of hands that put this together. But these guidelines, the really only effect coming out of it that we noticed is that it will probably, we're changing the threshold from $50 down to $25 that an account can be negative before a student goes on a reimbursable meal. The reimbursable meal is again the milk, the fruits, and the vegetables. And so when we looked at it, right now we're estimating that would affect about 9 families. And in those cases, I'll personally give them a phone call. We'd like to put this in place, or we are going to put this in place January 1st as of the new year. So we'll let families know about it before the end of this month so that they can prepare for that. We'll reach out to any families that have that really past due negative account balances right now and just let them know of the change in policy. The students are all still going to continue to receive some form of a lunch. That's not changing. And it'll just, we're hoping to decrease some of our negative account balances that we have out there. When we compare it to other school districts, we're extremely lenient. Many other ones cut it off at 0. Once you hit 0, you get that reimbursable meal or a cheese sandwich or something at that time. So ours, we've been very lenient. We're going to bring it a little bit more in line with what is normal with other school districts. Any questions on that?
Just so everybody's aware too, when a negative balance does occur, or actually when it hits $5, that triggers a Sky Alert via the phone message, a text message, and an email. I get all 3 of those when my lunch balance goes below $5, and it's continual throughout the week too. So it's not like this is out of the ordinary. We are very discreet in regards to when we do distribute a reimbursable lunch to a child whose parents have not, cleaned up that balance as well. We don't send a slip home. We don't put a stamp on their hand. Everything is handled electronically.
At the primary school, it is logical to me as they go through the lunch line that you could handle that more easily because the kids punch their code first. At the intermediate school, that seems like it might be more challenging to do discreetly.
Correct.
The whole lunch shaming thing is
it's ultimately what it is they would come with some kids already do if they've got an a la carte item and or a meal, and again, we're talking about a very limited number of families that it is, but ultimately when they do get
the number doesn't matter though, right?
Correct, but when they do get there, we do say we're very sorry, but you do have to take back that. The only thing that we're going to allow you to take today is the milk, the vegetable, and the fruit. So that's the way it would be at the intermediate school too. Right now, I think the $25, right now I think our current limit of 50, I think we had 2 families current.
Over the $50?
Who are over the $50.
Families
3 families.
Over $50.
Correct, yeah. But yes, we do try to handle that as discreetly as possible, and we do the best we can. I've reached out personally after Sherry has, I have, as we do want the kids to, ultimately be fed. But we do the best we can to collect those unpaid balances. And like Sherry was saying, there are a lot of school districts where it's 0, and as soon as you come through, they're like, we're really sorry, you have to go put that back. So we do give some leeway.
Reach out to families because we do have the free and reduced lunch programs. So that anytime that there are these negative balances, we always remind them, please, if you could fill out this paperwork, you may qualify for this, and we'd love to be able to give you all of this stuff for free.
So you're reaching out to them?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep, that's not just
Absolutely,
shared.
it's included all registration at the beginning of the year, and then throughout the fall. If there's anybody who was on it and didn't fill in paperwork, we'll reach out to them at that time as a reminder. So we're really trying to help them to get their food balances cleaned up.
Are there people of the 9 or whatever you said there, are any of those on reduced fee lunches, or it's all just people that are on regular, like not on the free and reduced
I would
program?
have to look at that, I'm not 100% sure.
They wouldn't be on free.
That's what I said, reduced.
They're also
Right.
reduced.
Reduced.
Correct, yeah, the reduced, they possibly.
And we don't have many families on reduced at all, so I'm gonna go with they wouldn't be on either program.
Yeah.
So,
Would we want to handle the situation differently if they were?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have, there's been some situations where we have a reduced family, where
Yes.
we just waive fees. You know, we
Yeah.
take a look at it and just waive a fee.
Right.
From that standpoint too,
Yeah.
so.
we're doing, yeah.
We do that from our standpoint
Yeah.
as well. But if it was a reduced family that was just on the cusp, we would kick in some professional reason and make sure that family was taken care of.
Absolutely.
But like Sherry said, that's not the case in this situation.
Sure, yeah.
And that information for free and reduced is provided at every step? Because I know you did say at the beginning of the school year and fall.
Yeah,
But
it's provided
finances
in the
can be fluid.
registration, absolutely. And so that's something that we also will reach out if it's starting to go in that direction. Hey, do you know about this program? We'll definitely contact families, make sure everybody's aware of it as much as we can.
Yep.
So we want to help them. All right, so that's the guidelines that are going out. Then we talked about some of our audit findings, which Brian nicely summarized this evening. And lastly, then, we talked about the budget calendar. And that's just, we've already started it. It starts in December, and it works through November. So starting in December, I put together a little bit of some preliminary numbers and I met with the administrative team already, get a little feedback on that and designing the budget for next year. In January, we'll have our second Friday membership count. And then after that, I'll be able to put together a little bit better picture and probably present a little bit of information at the January board meeting on some of our budget scenarios and what we're looking at. So very, very preliminary in January, but it'll be something coming out.
Okay, thanks, Sherry. From a student achievement standpoint, we've been meeting, and like Jim said about the teaching, the TILT committee. Our next steps are, is this upcoming January, our teacher teams are going to get together and really take a look at the digital literacy standards and identify in each grade level where we will address those literacy standards all the way down to the unit and to the assessment and or the project that it will be assigned to. The next big component for the TILT team will really take a look at the digital citizenship standards. So in creating kind of very simple and probably not real simple, but basically very straightforward and intentional, basically digital citizenship, no different than what we would do with alcohol and drugs with AODA curriculum, our anti-bullying curriculum with Act Now, being very intentional. And I know Jay and his staff have already started that as well, but we will create a basically digital citizenship curriculum, kindergarten through 8th grade along those lines. So that will be the really big work of the team coming up in the months of February, March, and so forth. From the mathematics side, things are moving very, very well. January 10th, we've got an all-day site visit. We've asked our teacher team to narrow down all of the different curricula that we have been looking at, and we have narrowed it down to 2 main players at the primary and at the intermediate level. So just today too, myself and Martika met with the 5-8 math leaders, and we've kind of got our ducks in a row about what vision we look for, making sure that all of our kids are ready for that geometry class as they enter Arrowhead High School. So things are moving along very, very well, and they will culminate on January 10th, where we go to some site visits, and after that we'll have a lot of piloting going on across the entire district. And right now we actually have 3 or 4 different pilots going on within those different curricula components too as well. So lots moving forward on the student achievement side.
Okay, we're on to principals updates.
a week ago Monday, the primary school had 2 concerts, one at 5:30 and one at 7. New songs, traditional favorites, kids' favorites, some hard music that the kids had to practice with, some rounds, some harmonies, and the fact that that the kids practice once all together is a pretty remarkable phenomenon. It's just a tribute to the kids, the practice, and the rigor that Andy puts into the program. But the practice, the kids had a blast, and they sounded great later on in the evening. So I think the highlight was the hug from the K2 kids when they hugged each other at the end of the song. That was just
That was fantastic.
that was a tearjerker. But then 3/4 did a great job with the peace song, and that was excellent too. Jay?
So we had a concert the following evening. On the right is Mr. Warney and part of the choir there. In the middle, every once in a while I go up into the practice room and the band room and take a picture from on high. So that's the 5th grade band playing there. And when I send this link to you, if you click on where it says jazz band, there's like a 15-second part of them playing in the concert. They sounded professional. I shared it with some middle school principals in New York City, and they said, wow, where can I get that album? I said, that's our 7th and 8th grade jazz band. They were just phenomenal. You heard them.
We got a ton of feedback, not only for this concert, but at the tree lighting as well, where we had our jazz band, our encore choirs, both. But the jazz band was, and I'm not saying the encore choir wasn't, isn't fantastic, but everybody was talking about the jazz band.
Well, they had a direct comparison to the Arrowhead band that was there too.
It was really nice. We'll move on.
Okay. The K2 concert was standing room only. And we had about 410 chairs on the floor. Thanks, John, for the setup and all that great stuff. Those were all filled. And there was not much, it was packed in the stands too, so. And the 3-4 was not quite as full, but I just want to, the attendance was terrific. And lots of grandparents, family members, new babies, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, future Mustangs were in attendance too. Thanks.
I liked the warming up the crowd at the beginning. That was my favorite. And my kids singing and stuff.
And Mr. Warney and Mr. Jeff are just doing a great job with the kids. They're taking some kids caroling tomorrow to a couple of senior centers, and they're actually performing at a restaurant tomorrow as well, so that'll be kind of cool. That's you.
Talking about technology.
What's going on there?
It was dress up day, it was green and red day, remember?
That's right. That's not you.
That's not me, no. In former life. No, that's Mr. Sutter with his class. His smartboard was on the Blink today, so he took his Chromebook and went out into a large group area and used one of the new monitors and had the mini lesson out there. And I thought it was pretty cool that he did that. He was just thinking on his feet, hey, we can use that and so forth. So that's why I took the shot. It was a great way to go to plan B, as Jim had talked earlier, that it wasn't like, oh, now what do? I can't use this. And he went right to that. Thank you.
You are. And then in STEM in 6th and 7th and 8th grade, they've been doing a whole bunch of stuff. So there's a link there to Pull Toys. Mary took a video and tweeted it out. I was at a conference and I just had to find out what was going on around school. So she took a video, so you'll be able to see that there, where the kids actually design a pull toy, and it has to have certain moving parts and has to do certain things. So that was pretty cool. The top picture there is a VEX car. So you have to program the car to travel a certain distance, put it all together, working in small groups. That's in 8th grade. This over here is a therapy toy that was designed by some 6th graders. The name of their group is SWAM. Each one of them, it's the first letter of each of their names. So that's what they put together there. But that's a therapy toy that would be used by with individuals with cerebral palsy. And that little tube right there is actually, oops, I'm sorry. That little tube right there actually extends, so it grows as the kid grows. So they can use that to move around. So that was a trip to Menards to get that. They were really excited about their trip to Menards about that. And then our 3D printers are still being used. The kids are designing things and then having them printed out. And if you look really close, you'll see my reflection, because there really isn't a really good way to take that particular picture. But the STEM stuff that's going on within our classrooms, 6, 7, 8, 5th grade, will be starting up with some of that really soon. And then the electives that Mary runs, just a great opportunities for all of our kids here.
Stay there. Jim, that VEX programming, would that be something that would be a takeoff as 5K and first grader doing things with B-bots? That would be, those would be the...
They're learning that base knowledge.
That base knowledge there.
That'll lead up to that type of VEX program, robotics, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And then the giving tree on the left is how the tree started, full of tags. And on the right, I grabbed 4 5th graders to help out with moving all of the presents from in the office by Mrs. Emmerich, who you couldn't find in the office because she was kind of hidden amongst all the presents to out here. So then when the kids come down at lunchtime, they're able to see that, and it's quite a thrill for the kids to see that their efforts have really going to be benefiting some of our needy families in the area.
And not to be outdone, that's the area where copies are made just off the office, and we were running out of space there too. And there are some of our 4th graders who helped Darlene Hafferman, and Darlene has been very active in the main hallway the last few days, directing kids with foods and gifts, and she's really in her element. So it was a wonderful, wonderful event. So during last week and this week, I offered teachers 20 minutes to a half hour to take a blow, and then I come in and read to their kids. And I've got a stack of seasonal Christmas, winter type stories that I read in there. What we call mentor texts, and the Owl Moon is a Caldecott winner. And if you've never read it, or if you should read it, it's a classic. It's about a father and a son. They go out and look for great horned owls in the middle of the night. It's really pretty sweet. And what the kids are learning in Writer's Workshop and Reader's Workshop really feeds into this with figurative language. And the whole story is told through the eyes of the child, which is really pretty cool. So I use a DocCam to present the book on the smartboard. And it's a chance for me to get in and play teacher a little bit too. So 20 minutes sometimes runs into a half hour. It's a way to give teachers a chance to catch their breath as well. So it's a good time.
And then the final part here, fortunately for us, we had over 400 students and staff attend the movie Wonder on our half day. It was just a phenomenal experience, and #ChooseKind comes from the book. And Wednesday, Mike had his assembly with the primary school kids. The 4th graders run that, so he just hands off the microphone. And my presentation happens to be there with #ChooseKind, and just watching the kids and the staff and all the things they're doing. We've had a staff member who lost a family member, and how the 5th grade team just stepped up and took over for that particular teacher was phenomenal. And I had the chance of covering a couple of classes. This morning I covered, was it this morning? Yeah, it was this morning. This morning I covered 2 math classes at the same time, Miss Fry's class and Mrs. Scardino's class. So they were doing 10 marks, and then we were reviewing for a quiz, and they took a quiz, so I actually have a panoramic view of me from one class to the other as they're all taking the quiz. But Mike and I step into classrooms to take over to give our staff a chance to take a break. I taught math class last week for Mrs. Jones, because her 2 sons are in 7th grade, and they have to do the counselor meetings with the parents. So, I said 7th grade, didn't I? Yeah, I didn't do that. I meant their juniors in high school. Anyways, so she came back and actually got to see me teach about the last 10 minutes of the lesson that she prepared, and it was just a blast. So, and we're having a little fun with the 12 days of Christmas here for our staff too, just different dress-up days, and maybe a little lunch on. My wife does a great hot beef. If you ever want a recipe, let me know. It's really good, right, Jim? It was pretty good.
Oh, that's good.
Very good. I would, you know, when you, I don't know how often you look at these links that Jay sets up, but you should see that one. It's worth your time to look at that one. And the things that are included in it, not just the assembly part, but the things that, the links that are embedded in it are really pretty special, so I hope you take a chance to look at that.
I have to show you one picture from this one. You know which one I'm going to show.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it always starts off with a song while all the kids, remember I'm in the gym by myself with all the kids, which is kind of fun. So it always starts off with a song, but then as we move through, we were talking about different things we can do to choose to be kind, and so that's my buddy from Minnesota, Mark French. He's a principal. That's what he has on his wall. We're going to try and get that somewhere, John, just so you know. That's going to get painted somewhere. There's the giving tree, and that's me as a first grader. So I told my story of moving every 2 years, and when I got into 7th grade, midway through my 7th grade year, I moved from Louisville, Kentucky to Waukesha, Wisconsin, and talked about the difficult times that I had because people couldn't understand me. Never wore jeans in Kentucky when you went to school. That's what everybody wore in Wisconsin. Because you had to, because it was cold. I had no idea. I had plaid pants and a plaid shirt that probably didn't match. That my first day of school. I still remember Mr. Hanford, my Phi Ed teacher, how he got me connected with the right kids and the importance that a teacher has. And just talked about that story. And then we showed this video here of, you probably have seen that, of Keaton Jones. And the gym was dead silent. And we had a really good conversation about that, and a lot of conversations at lunchtime. And then just some of the other things. So if you have a chance to take a look at it and you want to talk about it, I'd be happy to do so. But Mike and I both take pride in those assemblies with the kids. It may seem like there's not a, you know, it's just a chance for us to get in front of the kids, but they need to see us as people too. So it's kind of a cool deal. So thanks for bringing that up.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Okay, so we are on to new business. We already took care of the audit. So why don't we do the land, the leasing?
Sure. Per the Finance Committee's recommendation, just looking for, recommending the board to approve a 2-year contract for the 2018-19 growing season to Triple K Farms at the price of $161 per acre.
Make a motion to approve a 2-year contract, 2018-2019 growing seasons to Triple K Farms at a price of $161 per acre.
I'll second.
Okay, there's the motion and a second. Any discussion? Just wanted to, you brought up the fact about selling that?
Yeah, it's just with prices as they are right now, and arguably land prices may be peaking to some extent, but it might be something to look at. I'm not advocating we necessarily do it.
I think it'd be worthwhile for us to talk about it at some point. And the lease here doesn't make any difference because we sell the lease with the land if we chose to.
How would you like to go about doing that? Through the strategic planning team, or would you like to kind of make that recommendation, or a workshop?
I don't think that, I think that discussion come within the board here.
Yep.
Do our own research, you know. The reason for purchasing was because of the growth and not having enough, you know, when the growth spurt was going on, we thought, oh, we're going to get caught not having a place for a building. Well, we never continued that growth trend,
Right.
so if that's an issue that we want to put on the agenda for the future, we could do that.
And part of what reflects that is our lease rate this year at 161 is actually down from our current lease rate.
Right.
By about $9
What is
an
the
acre.
cost? Like, what are the taxes that we pay on that?
We don't, it's off the tax
It's
roll.
off.
Because we own it, right? Yeah, there is no
So there's no cost to owning it?
There is absolutely,
Okay.
I'm sure it's underneath of our.
Our insurance policy, yep.
policy.
Sure, okay.
So would you like me to put that on for, we can talk about that in future agenda items?
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Okay, we're on to future meeting and agenda items.
Yep, January 8th, the full board will meet together in workshop format for another strategic planning committee meeting, and then there are several others that are going to be moving forward through the months of January and February, but the entire board will not be present, so we will still post it as a workshop, but obviously in workshop formats, no official business is taken and no decisions are made there. But then on January 29th, the big object there is open enrollment seats for 2018-19. For the DPI, we do need to declare both regular ed and special ed seats available. We started that process at the administrative team level already, and we'll be ready to bring to the board that proposal for both special ed and regular ed. In addition to that, I know it's not on here, is we will be getting a preliminary budget report, an update for the 18-19 budget cycle, with assumptions and some projects that we'd like to bring forward for consideration. Again, this is very preliminary, but ultimately the administration, in particular Sherry, and our administrative team need to continue to plan for the upcoming school year. Staffing levels, projects, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why that'll be important to guide some of the important decisions being made in the next couple of months as we prepare for the 18-19 school year. Is everybody good with that? That's the last Monday in January. Is everybody good with that? Okay.
Why don't we kick back talking about the sale of the land to maybe March? We would sell, you know, if we decide to do it, give us a little time to do a little researching, see what trends are. You know, we've got some property in the area that are selling, so we'll get some.
Probably have some agents in the district that might be able to give us an appraisal.
Yeah, would you like the administration to do some digging as it relates to what's
Right.
Yeah, okay. We can get some information.
Because there are, you know, there's a parcel that's 8 acres. It's just on maybe on the east side of Lake Pfeiffer Road.
Just something of railroad tracks.
So that's fairly decent comparable, right next to the tracks also. And then the end of Lake 5, that's we're digging purples today, so that'll get closed fairly quickly.
Where was that? End of Lake 5 and
VV.
VV. Oh, they are purple. Are doing perk test. Okay.
Do you happen to know if they decided to go with lots of smaller lots?
I never did see what happened in that second meeting. There was nothing in the newspaper. I'm not home enough to go.
You're talking about on the north,
Just across
east
from-
side.
Oh,
I thought you were talking about on the corner of across from PD or the new Quick Trip.
That's a different kind of land. That's
Okay. Yeah, I was like, oh, perk test sounds good.
that is commercial there. That's
Yeah.
all commercial.
Okay.
The idea about starting meetings earlier, monthly meetings, was brought up. Is that something we want to discuss?
It's no difference to me.
Starting at 6:30 with our monthly meetings.
I think we had talked about it. We should probably double check with Chris before we make a decision on it.
Would you like me to talk to Chris? And if
Talk to
Chris
Chris.
is okay with
If
6:30?
you talk to Jules, would that make it?
Is that easier or harder for you? You're the only guy that comes, so.
Well, Mary's here.
That's true, but she's not always here. She should be.
Way to go, Mary.
I can follow up with Chris if we wanted to start at 6:30. That's
Well, just kind of poll, see if that's a problem with anybody.
okay. For you four, is we good? 6:30?
Yeah, I had said earlier, personally, I prefer having it a little bit later, but it works either way for me. So if it works better for someone at 6:30, then it's fine.
If it discouraged people from coming, then I'd say no. But since we don't have anybody coming, I can't say it's discouraging.
That's why we polled the audience.
All right, I will check with Kris, and if he's okay with a 6:30 start, we'll try the 6:30 start starting the new year.
I think that's it.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
We have motion and second, all in favor then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion's carried, we're adjourned.
Financial literacy.